Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. I am Mark Paul. This is my co-host Justin Baker. Justin, we're back on the train here and getting out of the summer vibes where we do a show every 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, miss seeing your face, man. Glad to be
I
back at it.
know. I know it is. And this is our first show that we've done since the horrible tragedy of the Gaudreau brothers,
Mm.
Johnny and Matthew. And I don't have a whole lot to say other than it's just freaking terrible. And I, in my lifetime, don't think I ever remember someone who was still really like playing and was this good and is just gone. And it's horrible. Like from a hockey standpoint, horrible. From a family standpoint, unimaginable. So
Yeah, it sucks, right? That's the only way to put it. It's a shitty thing and another to say it, but you always harp all the time, don't drink and drive, call Uber. There's reasons we have these options available, right? And yeah, it's terrible, man. I think that the closest thing I was thinking about it the other day was just the Vladimir Konstantinov. I know he
mm,
ultimately didn't lose his life, but it still hit pretty hard. And
in a lot of ways, he definitely lost the life he was living
right.
before. Yeah. And as far as his hockey career, definitely ended in a flash. And I think he probably would have gone on to win the Norris. Maybe Lidstrom has one fewer Norris if it's not for that, but
Maybe.
'cause he was a very underrated defenseman. But yes, of course, our hearts go out to the Goudreau's family, and at this point, we just hope that something can come out of what occurred that impacts people in a positive way, and I think we're seeing a lot of hockey players and people around the world showing a lot of love to their family, and it is cool to see how people rally around each other. You just wish that you didn't have to do that. So,
Right.
all right, we'll leave it at that, and we will move into our Central Division preview for the 2024-25 season. And no easy transition between that and talking about a preview. But we have the entire NHL to preview here before the regular season begins. So we are going to start with the Central Division and the we'll just go alphabetical order through the teams and talk about what we think about what they did in the offseason and where they're going. And ultimately, we'll give some predictions and maybe the order that we think the Central Division will end in. And here and there, some surprise things that we think will crop up. Maybe some players that you might not expect to make the team that may be able to slide onto the roster and make an impact. And also some guys that have had good seasons. And maybe we think, hey, this guy's going to slide off the bandwagon here a little bit. And different players hit 30, 35, and things can change real quickly. So let's start with the Chicago Blackhawks. They, once again, are maybe the easiest team to talk about in this division because I think once again, they are, if not the worst, they're likely to be near the bottom. Yes?
Yeah, that's an easy prediction right there. I think if just looking at it, obviously we could talk all day about Utah. I think that's going to be a big focus with this division. But for me, really, Chicago's right there at the bottom. I think when you look at what other teams have done, and it almost seems like every team to me is going to almost take a step forward. Whereas I think Chicago, even though they added pieces, I just don't even see them taking a step forward. The only thing to talk about really with this team is Bedard. And that's really, yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi signed. They signed a couple other veteran pieces.
Yeah, Pat Maroon comes in there, which like he's not moving a needle. He's just Pat Maroon is a good luck charm. That's really
Yeah.
all he. Like, a good guy in the room, but he is the four-leaf clover. He's the guy that he's the rabbit foot that you're hanging from your locker room door in hopes that he does something positive for your team. The decent little signings like Laurent Brossoit, I like that addition. 3.3 million bucks. He gets paid, I think probably more than he would have gotten anywhere else. I'm sure that's why he went there. But yeah,
Mhm.
he was good behind Hellebuck, and I think that he maybe looks at this as an opportunity to finally sneak his way into being a legitimate, at least A1B type of goalie. I think we've seen those flashes from him,
Yeah.
and he was good last year.
He wasn't, and I wouldn't listen, we all know Mrazek has a lot of health issues, right? He constantly gets injured almost every year. So I think this is a good signing for Chicago because they got a guy who, in my opinion, he'll probably end up playing 30 to 40 games. So he'll be able to just slide in there. And as bad as I think this defense is going to end up being, anyways, I don't think there's going to be any loss as far as goaltending quality if it's Mrazek or Brossoit. So either one I'm happy with. I think this is going to be a decent enough tandem for a team that we all know, again, it's going to be at the bottom.
Yeah, goaltending is for a team that is going to be bad, or not going to be. I'll say this: I don't think they're going to be easy to play against. I think that's why they went out and went, let's target. Hey, let's target a Pat Maroon. Let's target a Tyler Bertuzzi. Let's target TJ Brody.
Mhm.
Is TJ Brody that great anymore? No, but is he gonna give everything he's got? Yes. Alec Martinez, another guy who is he gonna give all he's got? Absolutely. He's got a Stanley Cup. He's got two Stanley Cups. He has a Stanley Cup winning goal, I believe.
Yeah.
And then hey, Teuvo Teravainen, not a bad signing there either. He is someone I'll say he will push the needle. He isn't necessarily somebody that you can have be by himself, but you get him with Bedard. I think that's a lot better option than what Taylor Hall was coming in there last year.
I think healthy Taylor Hall is gonna help push the needle a little bit, but is he the line driver, Hart Trophy guy he once was? No, but, you know, I still think he's capable of a 60 to 70 point season. Again, depends on who he plays with, but he could still be a guy that contributes well enough, I think, to, again, to make this team exciting and tough to play against.
Yeah, and the when you look up and down this roster, they bring in Ilya Mikheyev, re-sign Dickinson. They've got there for another couple years. Uh, It really is a team that they have done a really nice job at going. We just need to surround Bedard with some guys that can play.
Mhm.
Also, I think they're going to be more competitive than last year. That doesn't mean they're going to be better in the standings per se, but I do think that they'll be more competitive because of the players that they're surrounding themselves with. They've done a better job this year than they did last year in terms of the talent. Like Teravainen and Bertuzzi alone are that's those are two good players to bring in on the wing and to fill out your top six.
Yeah. I'll be honest, they're not gonna score a league low 179 goals next year, so, they'll do a little better than that.
Let's hope not. You'd think that's not gonna be the case, but they're maybe the issue isn't going to be, can the forwards score? The issue really is gonna be, who is going to pass the puck up to those forwards? Seth
Well,
Jones is
it's
I mean,
only
he's
Seth Jones.
is Seth Jones I was thinking about Seth Jones, trying to go, where is Seth Jo when he got traded to Chicago, there was still a lot of talk about who Seth Jones or is it Werenski who was driving that, and I think a lot of people lean towards Werenski. Seth Jones and Darnell Nurse, are they not in the same conversation? Like, if Seth
Oh,
Jones is
no.
on a good team, because let's face it, $9.5 million is a lot for a cap hit, but does it do anything having him there in Chicago? No, actually, it helps them because it gets them to the floor. But if he's on a good team, we're talking about how bad his contract is. Nobody's talking about it because he's in Chicago and it doesn't matter anymore.
I agree. Like, don't get me I don't think he's as bad as Darnell Nurse, but that contract, man, is just not fun to look at. Again, if he's on another team, right?
Yep, yep. And yeah, I don't look at Alec Martinez as a guy who's going to drive play from the back end. I definitely don't look at that way from TJ Brody. Brody, if there's any redeeming quality, it's just his ability to lock things up in the corner, but he's not moving the puck. Alex Vlasic, he can move the puck somewhat, but it's not as if he's somebody that is going to go out and grab you 50 assists over the course of a year. So I just don't know who's gonna move the puck for them.
No, the fact is the Blackhawks have a lot of young defensemen in the pipeline, and I think even though, yeah, I agree with you, these guys aren't gonna move the puck, they're not gonna move the needle, but Alec Martinez, TJ Brody, they're good veteran guys to have in there to help mold and help grow these youngsters and hopefully in on the next 3, 4 years now, we're talking about a team that's developed, and these young defensemen have come up and they've again developed and grown into capable top 4, top 6 defensemen. And again, we're talking about a playoff Blackhawk team.
Yeah, the Athletic did rank Chicago with the number 1 prospect pipeline in the NHL, which is a
Bedard on
good
this?
and a bad it's a good and a bad list to be on. No, Bedard's not on the pipeline. He's already on the team. So, no, he doesn't count, but some nice guys that are gonna be coming up, Merrick Vanacker, and it's the Blackhawks are of course, you're gonna have a pipeline of players because you've been terrible. So, you're drafting high, those players are all ranked high, so yeah, the pipeline to me, there's been a lot of teams that, "Oh, they have the best pipeline. Watch how good this team's gonna be." And it doesn't necessarily mean that your team's gonna go and win the Stanley Cup. It just means that you have a lot of you drafted high, and so you drafted a lot of highly rated players. Anyways, Chicago Blackhawks, I think we're in agreement that they're gonna be definitely near the bottom of this division, but maybe more fun to watch, more
There you
competitive, and you just wanna see them score maybe an extra 40 goals, get up above that 200, 210 mark, and then you're probably winning an extra 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. Here's a real question, right? Bedard, over under 80 points. Where you got him?
Oh, over under 80 points. I think with the additions that they made this year, if he's healthy all year, I'd say that he's over 80 points.
Okay.
I think that the development arc and looking at where he was last year, I think it's very safe to say 80 points is a I think if he's less than 80 points, I don't wanna go as far to say that it would be a disappointment, especially if he's showing some improvements defensively. I think that if he's under 80 points, the Blackhawks probably didn't score more than 200 goals again, right? Like, if
Yeah.
he only has 80 points, who else is gonna get the other 120 goals on that team? Not that he's getting 80 goals by any means, but
Right.
yeah. Yes, they would have to at 52 points last year, they won 23 games. I think an extra 5 wins with those 30 to 40 goals, and you look at it, like 290 goals against. That's a lot of goals against. Only what the Sharks, the Ducks, the Blue Jackets had more goals against than the Blackhawks. So it not with Brossoit, you get that second goalie in there who can play. Maybe you let in 20 less goals throughout the year.
Yeah, maybe.
And if you can get 30 or 40 more the other way, you're looking at least a 5, but even a 10-game swing. Even with 33 wins, they're still only at 72 points, which still has them last place in the Central Division. Oh, they could be third to last in the Pacific, the way the Pacific was going, but well, okay, let's move on from the Blackhawks, and we'll give a full prediction of the entire division, but let's go to the Colorado Avalanche.
Ah, yes.
Yes, the Avalanche are in a really is it like an awkward position because of what's going on with Nichushkin and Landeskog?
Yeah.
Like, those are 2 key cogs in your top 6, and I know Landeskog, it's almost like, well, he wasn't there last year, so, you're used to him not being there, but that's just, you're wondering, is he coming back? What's gonna happen here? I what do you think about what with Landeskog? What do you think?
I've heard he's coming back. The rumor is that he's going to be available this season. Now, at what point? That's a whole nother question, right? I think they're trying to get him back for training camp so he can start the season with him. But I haven't been keeping up on it. If I'm being completely honest, I think regardless, you still have to plan around him not being available, just like you have to not plan on Nichushkin being available. And I don't know, again, if he's going to, once he gets out of the NHL assistant program, what his availability is going to be like or what kind of player he's going to be like. And then, of course, does the team welcome him back into the room as well? Obviously, Landeskog, right? It's an easy transition. You can start him off with some less minutes and just slowly work him back after being off for, gosh, feels like 5 years now. But with Nichushkin, you got to build back that trust factor too, right? And I think a lot of that gets a little easier because if you just show up, you go play, and you produce, guys will welcome you back in, of
Yeah,
course.
people can get over it. I don't the issue to me with Nichushkin is gonna be somewhat of a trust issue,
Mhm.
and whether or not I understand addiction is not a, "Oh, you're all better now," and you can say, "Well, you can't be mad at somebody because they struggle with something." But that's just yes, you can say that. It's just not rooted in reality. It doesn't mean you can't be angry at somebody, and it doesn't
Right.
mean that you never have to trust that person ever again. That's your right. Yeah, if you say, "Hey, I understand, like, this person's working on this," that doesn't mean that you have to want to be their teammate. You could say, "Hey, I'm rooting for you, but I can't have you in my life either." There are a lot of other people to consider, and the fact that this is not just the first time this happened, this is the second time that
Right.
this happened. I think that it would be fair if some player said, "I don't want him on the team. I don't trust that he's gonna be here. We're gonna rely on him all season, and what's gonna happen? We don't know." Unless Nichushkin is willing to put himself onto a leash and lock himself in a hotel room, and there's gonna be some people that don't trust him, and
Lock
I
himself in a hotel room.
you're not wrong that if a player starts to produce and they're doing well, people have short-term memories. People will go, whatever, okay. He's putting up big points, he's helping us win. Let's see if this lasts." It doesn't mean that you necessarily believe that it's gonna last. You probably hope that it will, but that's a tricky situation
Yeah.
because it's the second time. If we're talking the first time that something happens, people are far more forgiving, and hopefully they can all figure it out, but with Landeskog, actually, they're going to be doing an Amazon docuseries,
Oh,
and he's one of the 10 players they're gonna be following. So he will definitely be back. If he's on board for some kind of documentary, then I'm assuming he'll be back. So for me, if he's back, you've got a healthy McKinnon and Rantanen and Nichushkin returns, which I don't think that Nichushkin has been cleared from the assistance program.
no.
So I think that that's gonna just be seeing where that kinda all ends up. Maybe he starts the season on I I don't think that it's do you start the season on IR? Like, can you
Yeah,
go on
you
LTIR and not count against the cap? Yeah, that's right.
yeah, but you don't get skipped, but the problem is for a Colorado team that lacks a lot of depth, they still can't spend that money because
Right.
you don't have any control when he comes back. Once the NHL Players Assistance Program clears you, that cap just starts right back up regardless if you wanna have him on your team or not. So, for a team
Yeah,
that
because they can't trade him right now. That'll be it. Like, when he comes back, do they trade him? And let's face 6.125 for the next 4 years. It's a longer deal. He's only 29, so the deal ends when he's 33. At 6,000,000 bucks, maybe you go somewhere else. It's not as if he's a bad player. Like, it's not as if he just got bad at hockey.
he's good, he puts up almost a point per game,
He's valuable, and I think if you can bring him back into the fold, I think he's probably more valuable to you at this stage of Colorado's this iteration of the Avalanche. You need high level players. You're not going to trade Nichushkin and bring back another high level guy. You're going to trade
like,
Nichushkin and
get a
what?
prospect.
Maybe get a prospect, maybe like a second round pick. Like no
We're
bad
lucky.
teams giving up their first round pick. Maybe a second round pick. Maybe a better team. You trade them to a team in the Eastern Conference that has some space that isn't worried about their first round pick. Maybe they're willing to trade a first round pick to
I
try
wouldn't
and
take that chance.
sneak 'em. Yeah, but you look at the East and you go, now, what if Boston is willing to trade a first round pick and go up? I can't see it happen. You're right. I can't see a
Yeah.
team. Maybe
Maybe
Washington.
Utah. Utah could be the one team just because they like to make splashes. I think
Yes,
their
but I
owner
don't
wants
think they're
to
trading a
do both.
first round pick.
Mm, no,
Because they'll know, hey, we're not projected to be there. Maybe they make maybe we make the playoffs is like, "Uh, maybe we could make the playoffs." Like, it's very
definitely,
everything.
it's definitely top 10 protected if I'm trading it. That's for sure.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. Like a team like Carolina, they could use a guy like Nichushkin, right?
Yeah,
Rod Brind'Amour would, I don't know, maybe do some things, but anyways, he can't be traded, and,
probably not.
until he returns, and we'll find that out. The other thing that is going to be up for a discussion is gonna be Mikko Rantanen. He's only 27.
Mm,
He's about to be a UFA at the end of the year. He's at 9.25 million, and, yeah, I would say that he's definitely due for a raise. So,
yeah,
Colorado's gonna have to figure that one out, and that deal has definitely what was that? A six-year deal at 9.25, and that deal it's worked out, I'd say, for both player and team. It was a good deal at the time. It remains a good deal. It's not like nobody's getting ripped off, nobody's getting huge benefits, but I'd say that next year, we're looking at William Nylander kinda money.
I was gonna say Artemi Panarin money, right? That
I
11
mean,
plus
okay, yeah,
million.
like
Yeah,
11, yep, yep, which is I think that's what Nylander's at 11.
yeah. Mhm.
So, yeah, I you're looking at least that, and now maybe he's willing to go 10-5 or something like that for on an 8-year deal. Yeah, we'll consider the fact that if they signed him to an 8-year deal, he'd be, what, 36 at the end of it? And even on an 8-year deal, I think he'd probably want 11. So, that's gonna be a tough deal for Colorado, and he can sign an extension now. Well, so you gotta maybe be asking the question, what's Colorado thinking here? I would assume that they don't think that they can lose him.
No, you're hurting as far as depth is concerned already, right? You brought in Casey Middlestat. You gave up a tremendous defensive product or prospect or player, whatever you want to call him, in Bowen Byram. And then again, you managed to keep Drury on the cheap. And so that just to me is already proof that you're struggling cap wise to maintain depth because you have guys like McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog who are going to eat up a ton of cap space, and you just don't have the money to bring in guys to replace him. So if you lose a guy like Rantanen, you're not going to go out in free agency and sign
No.
somebody to replace him. So it's going to be a hit, and you can't even. I would argue to say that even if you sign two guys at 5 and 5, you're still not going to replace that productivity.
And the cap's gonna go up. They've got 17,000,000 available next year, and there's not a whole lot of other UFAs that you go, "They also gotta sign this guy," or like an RFA. Kovalenko's an RFA, and not like a huge deal for money-wise. Brandstrom will be an RFA, but we're not sure what that's gonna end up looking like. Uh, and then really your only other question mark going into next year would be the goaltending situation. Georgiev will be a UFA. But the goaltending situation to me right now is probably their biggest question mark because do you trust that Georgiev can win you not just a playoff series, because this is a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations. Can he win you that big game? He had some good games in the playoffs. He had some rough games, and his regular season was not great. 8.97 save percentage for a high level team is not good enough. And when you're having to rely on your backup goalie so often, Frank Kuz was hurt a bunch last year. And I'm just wondering, is Georgiev the answer? Or are you out here looking for another goalie, uh, just waiting in the weeds, seeing what transpires, and eventually you're going to go out and grab a guy maybe at the deadline?
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to give. Gosh, how do you pronounce his last name? And Noonan.
A Noonan.
Yeah, they're gonna give him a shot, an opportunity. He looked good in limited opportunities last year. Now, if you put the pressure on him, because I don't think you want to try to play Georgiev 60 plus games again. So you're going to give this kid, this 24-year-old untested goaltender, an opportunity to play 20, 30 games in this league. And can he hold up? Right. So if he doesn't hold up, I do think you're going to see Colorado take a stab at a goaltender, and they could even hit the free agent market, bring in a Martin Jones or somebody like that who could come in and give you 15 good games and hopefully provide some stability, especially if there's any kind of injury. God forbid Georgiev goes down. I think you're up shit's
Well,
creek.
that's what I'm looking at is that, yeah,
Yeah.
either guy goes down, who are you bringing up? Because your two goalies that are right now in the minors are Kevin Mandoles and Trent Miner. That's
I'm
it.
not confident.
My guess is that they're out. There are some goalies that are out there like a Martin Jones. So my guess is they're they've been looking around, and that those conversations usually at this time of year, training camp comes in, we start to see some of those other goalies get snagged up. Uh, my guess, maybe there's been some conversation with Rantanen, and they're going, "Are we going to sign into an extension, or are we just letting this? Are we letting it hang out?" And as of right now, I haven't heard a whole lot about that extension, but that doesn't mean that they're not, in communication about it. I'm sure that they are. So that's going to
And I'm
be,
sure Georgiev's hoping he has a bounce back season for that contract too, because if you're his
yeah.
camp,
Oh, yeah,
your
for him.
value's
Yeah.
about as low as it can be right now. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Hey, he played 60 games. He won a lot of them. So there's that. I
yeah.
don't think that he's, not going to go out and be able to get another $3 million contract. But I think the hope certainly was that, hey, I'm number one goalie in Colorado. Let's go out, seize this, and I can be a $5-6 million goalie. And so far, that has not happened. Where do you drop this Avalanche team in terms of where they fall in the Central Division? We didn't even really hit a
Ooh,
lot on defense, although I would say that defense is their strength as far as their depth. They brought in a Shillington, they bring in a DeHaan and Brandstrom as an experiment. But Makar, Taves, Gerard, and Manson, there's few teams with a better top four than that. So it's
yeah.
almost like, yeah, we can talk about all these other things, but ultimately, they've got a lot of guys who can get their star forwards the puck. And then Cale Makar is basically Connor McDavid on defense.
Yeah, you could almost say that. Listen,
I did say it.
you did say that. That's very true. I still think, especially considering I think the subtractions that Winnipeg has, yeah, I'm confident Hellebuyck's gonna have another Vezina-like season. Will he win the Vezina? Who knows? But it's still gonna be a good season from him regardless. And I'm starting to get worried too because he's one of those guys that, over the course of the last 5, 6 years, he's played more games than anybody. So I start to wonder when we might start to see a little regression or when they say, you know what, we got to play this guy only 55 games, right? We got to give him a break. All that being said, I think Winnipeg fell a little bit in my eyes. And so I still think Colorado is still capable of finishing in that top three in this division.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely don't see them missing the playoffs by
Yeah.
any means, unless the goaltending really falls apart. But I think it's more likely that Georgiev bounces back a little bit and has a little bit better of a regular season if he's not playing as much. Let's limit him to 50 games and then see what else can come in there. I just think they're just too dynamic offensively not to be in the conversation. And if Nichushkin comes back and you just add Landeskog and he's healthy and he actually can, if he's just a shell of himself, it might be tough to watch, but it doesn't sound like that's the case. So I think that, hey, you didn't have your captain all last year and now he's back. So that's a big boost. All right, let's go to the Dallas Stars. Definitely one of the favorites for the division once again. And I had a pretty decent season last year. And they find themselves in this similar position. They didn't have to go out and do a whole lot in terms of, it's not like they had to give anybody huge deals, or there wasn't a ton to do for the Dallas Stars this offseason as they prepare for what is going to how their team's going to be shaped over the next 3 years, because hey, Jamie Benn's a UFA at the end of this year and that's a
Mm.
huge anchor to take off. Doesn't mean that he won't stay, but he won't be eating up $9.5 million of the cap, and that's they bring back Duchesne's still there at $3 million. Dadonov's still there. Wyatt Johnson, he will be an RFA at the end of the year, so he'll get a big deal. There's going to be some reorging of where guys fall in terms of the salary cap structure, but hey, walking into this next year, the Dallas Stars look pretty similar to what they looked like last year, other than Joe Pa retires.
Mm. Yeah, that's a big loss, not only just from a production standpoint, just from a locker room standpoint, right? But I think again, this Dallas Stars team, they're very well built. They have great leadership in that locker room already. And yes, losing a guy like Joe Pa is gonna suck, but I think they've got enough guys in there that are leaders, like Jamie Benn, for example. They'll be fine. They're a well-run organization. They have a great culture there. And winning doesn't hurt, right? So they've got guys who know how to win there. They went out last year and beat Vegas in the playoffs, which I thought were the two best teams in the Western Conference. And somehow that's why I hate the current playoff format. They ended up playing in the first round and it turned out to be a great series. But for me, I'm interested to see how this back end plays out because right now we've got Harley not re signed. He's an RFA still, no contract in place. I think they'll eventually get something done. But if you start missing training camp, history has shown us that guys that, again, hold out on contracts and miss training camp, they just have a shitty year. So
Yep.
when you've got to rely outside of Miro Heiskanen, you've got Matt Dumba who joins in there, Brendan Smith on the back end. Essa Lindell, I'm just meh, and he's an okay number 4 defenseman. Outside of that, you don't have much. How are these new
Yeah,
guys
didn't
on
I was gonna say I really didn't love the 2 defensive signings this offseason for Lyubushkin and Dumba.
mm,
Lyubushkin, 3 years at $3.25 million for a guy who is really a 6th defenseman is, not one of Jim Nill's best signings. Maybe they feel like he's, the perfect fit for something. I'm guessing after losing Tanev Tanev was a fantastic fit,
oh,
goes and he signs in Toronto. I'm guessing that they went, "Well, we can't have Tanev, so let's go get Dumba and Lyubushkin," and that kind of there's 2 guys that are Tanev light a little bit, but I just don't see that at all. Lyubushkin's not good, and I know because 'cause he's been on the Maple Leafs 17 times. They've traded for him every year for the last 3 decades, it feels, and he's never been good. He has not been good. I don't know why they brought him back, and he just yeah, he's pretty garbage, but
ne
maybe they feel like he can fit some role. Matt Dumba, I guess you're paying him for what he could be again, not necessarily what he was last year. Because last year he wasn't a good fit anywhere he went, but maybe they think they can turn that around. They did need some right-handed shots on their defense as well, so that kinda fills that need. And I guess you're going, maybe we can have Lyubushkin play with Heiskanen, and it'll because he did play with Morgan Riley, and he still wasn't good, but it freed up Riley to go and do some things. Maybe they feel that way about Heiskanen and Lyubushkin, I'm not sure.
yeah,
I
I don't
didn't like
know.
the signing at all.
No, I'm with you, and I hope
Not for 3 years.
no oh god, no. Yeah, no, take a one-year flyer on a guy, but you know what?
Or 3.
I'm still hoping I keep waiting because Heiskanen to me is still a Norris level type defenseman in this league, and they have to continually play him on his off wing because they can't find anybody to play on their right side. And I think that's really, to me, is what's holding him back is because they lean on him a little bit too much right now. Um, maybe Thomas Harley will help alleviate some of those minutes, but they can't get him signed either. And that's if you just give Labushkin $3 million, what are you going to have to pay Harley? So
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
gonna cost you now.
That's
So
a that is a great point. Okay, and all that to be said, hey, Dallas still does have $6.2 million left in cap space. Most of that probably going to Harley, but, yeah, I think it is fair to say they mostly stayed the same. Yes, they lose Pavelski, but bringing back Duchesne at a low-cost deal, again, like, he was very good for the Stars last year, and I think with the rest of the Robertson, the Rupe, Hintz, like, this team is still fantastic,
yep.
likely a top 2 team in the division for my money. I don't see them going anywhere.
Now,
And we didn't even get to goaltending, and, like, Ottinger's gonna be great, and he's in a contract year, and that means more money for my boy, Jake Ottinger, so
yeah, that's a good point. Because to me, he was average last year, and you look at his numbers, again, just pedestrian. So I think we're going to see more out of him. I think he'll be better. And thank God, no offense to Ryan Suter, but they got that slow freaking defenseman out of his way
yeah.
too. So that'll only help Ottinger for sure.
There we go. Yep, yep. Dallas, I think somewhere in the definitely in the top 3 of that division. I don't know. There's a scenario where they get if they have an injury on the back end, that could be really tough for them. But we'll see what happens. I don't see them falling out of the top 3. Like, I look at the rest of this division and I go, "What like, who else is gonna" see Colorado's in the top 3. You've got Winnipeg, Dallas, and then Nashville, and that's about it for competing for the top 3.
Yeah.
But okay, let's move on to the Minnesota Wild, who maybe are the most up up or down team in this division. Like, they might be the toughest team to pick where they're gonna fall, 'cause it wasn't the 2 years ago they made the playoffs, and last year they really fell off a cliff, but I think there's a scenario where this team could get back. You've got a whole year of and, Faber signs his big deal, $8,000,000, like, this team's ready to roll, and I think there's a chance that the Minnesota Wild kinda have a bounce back year.
Yeah, for me, it's all gonna hinge on Marco Rossi and really what he does and what his development is because this team, we've talked about it for years, but obviously they've been hamstrung by Parise and Suter's buyouts. They've lacked a true number 1 center for so long, and you have guys like Zuccarello who, in my opinion, his contract's way undervalued as far as what he brings and gets paid. I think he's phenomenal on both ends, and obviously Kaprizov is just a phenomenal Kirill the Thrill, right? He's phenomenal to watch. So when you got those 2 guys and you have nobody in the middle who can really dish the puck or nobody that just provides that responsibility as far as two-way play goes, I think that's the one thing I think this team really lacks, and they got lucky last year. I think with Faber, they found themselves a number 1 defenseman. And this kid, I think he's gonna be a superstar in this league as far as defensemen are concerned. Gosh, that to me is gonna be the biggest question mark is whether or not Marco Rossi can take another step and show that he is that guy that they drafted to potentially be that number 1 center.
Yes, yeah, and if he can be that guy, that's a huge if he walks out and he's a true number 1 center, that's an amazing boost for that team. I I'll also say maybe even more, Kirill Kaprizov had a slow start. I know he still had a as far as numbers go, he had a great year. He had 96 points. It's felt like he started a little slower, and I think that we need to see that pace not be so back end heavy. I think he started to pick up the pace once the season was gone.
No, you're right. It
Oh,
traditionally does that. I've looked at the numbers over the years, and he starts slow. And again, in this league, you have to get off to a quick start because when you're chasing teams like Colorado and Nashville and Dallas all year long, it's going to be tough to get wins when you're already behind the 8 ball.
so I just as an aside, I thought you said they haven't had a number 1 center in a while, and I was like, "Who would I say are the best centers that the Wild have had?" And that's it's yeah, Mikko Koivu is really the one number 1 center, and he really was more like a he was a really good number 2 center, I think, on a team that could've won something.
Mm,
Like, he was not gonna be the number 1 center on any Stanley Cup winning team. Like, he was good, but he wasn't great.
no.
He was never a superstar, not one iota of a superstar. He was very good. Like his brother Saku Koivu in Montreal, he was very good. He had some years where he put up some decent points, and he's a really good center, and he got to play with Marian Gaborik,
Mm,
and Marian Gaborik absolutely benefited from him being able to like, he took all the defensive responsibilities. He was a true two-way centerman, and I'm sure that he was voted up there in the Selke Trophy voting at some points during his career, but you've got him. I think Pavel Demitra was on the team at one point,
oh,
and he played
yeah.
center a little bit. Eric Stahl was a center on the Wild, I think, for
Yeah, he
like
had a
5
40-goal
seconds.
season. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I know.
and then I think we're going Jonathan Ericsson Ek is probably the next best center that's played there. They just have
Yeah.
had no centerman over the and this is a team that's been in the NHL since 1998. So, for those guys in the 25 years of your franchise's existence, those are the 4 best centers to play for you. I I think you've got an issue. You gotta start identifying some centers. Now, they've had some great wingers, no doubt about it on
Oh,
the
yeah.
wingers, but, uh, can Kirill Kaprizov get going? And from a goaltending standpoint, let's Philip Gustafson, can he find himself again and be who he was 2 years ago? And Marc-Andre Fleury fill in the rest. Is Fleury gonna come back and still be serviceable? he's getting up there. He's 39 years old. He'll be 40 this year. So
Yeah,
not too many goalies have successful 40-year-old career.
yeah, he was mediocre last year, and so was their old goaltending situations. I'm not overly optimistic about it. Let me just put it that way.
All right. Yeah, their top 6 is fine. I think Boldy takes a step. I think Faber takes a step on the back end, and then we'll see if Marco Rossi can. And if some things fall into place, if players have really good years and their younger players take big steps, I think there's a chance they could be a wild card team. Because more or less because I think St. Louis is like sounds like St. Louis is shopping some guys. They might take a step back. I don't know that Utah is still very good. Chicago's not very good. And there might be a window there.
Could be. I
Probably
mean,
not, but there's a
well,
window.
like we said too, if Georgiev has a terrible year again, obviously Colorado's going to score some goals, but maybe that costs them a few extra wins, and maybe Minnesota takes advantage of that.
Yes, and the best news for the Minnesota Wild is that next year they get $14+ million off their cap from the buyout that they made of Parise and Suter. Who Suter's just getting paid by a half a dozen teams in the NHL right now because he just keeps getting signed and bought out. So yes, an additional 15 million in cap space next year, and that includes Brock Faber already being signed to an 8 times $8.5 million deal. They don't really have, other than Marco Rossi will be an RFA next year, but it's coming off as an ELC. He hasn't been super productive so far. Even if Rossi goes out and what what do we think? Like he had 40 points. Let's say he goes out and gets 60 points this year. He's still probably not getting more than like 6 million on like a little short-term deal
Yeah.
because you're gonna go, "Hey, yes, you had a 60-point season, but let's see you do it again
Mm,
before we sign you to a huge deal." So I would suspect some kind of bridge deal unless he's out absolutely fantastic, and in which case that does leave the Wild some room to go out and do some things in free agency next year. That's where they are. They're just like a sitting duck. They have to wait and see, but I think there's a shot that they'll be more interesting this year
agree.
because of the progress that their young players made last year. All right, so we have done the first 4 teams in the Central Division, and I think we'll stop there. You can head over to the next episode. We're gonna post these at the same time, so you can head over to the next episode for the second half of the Central Division preview. That'll be the Nashville Predators, the St. Louis Blues, Utah hockey team. I know the hockey club and the Winnipeg Jets. So go over, listen to the next episode. Thanks for listening. Don't forget you can find us on Twitter and or X and Instagram, TikTok at OT Hockey Talk, and we'll see you at the second half of the Central Division preview.